Hi, hello, and apologies for the delay, but welcome to City of Cards. Turn 8, turn 9. I have turn 9 there. That shouldn't be turn 9. That's the wrong turn ID. We're going to hide that. That should have been turn 8, but I counted ahead. Hello, how are we doing? Apologies for the delay. Had a little fumble with the internet. There is a voice. That is true. Hi, hello. No, I had an issue with the internet which caused things to kerfuffle, and then I needed to make sure everything else was proceeding correctly. I am the voice of God because you kindred, you vampires all fear me. Isn't that correct? You're all terrified of me. Okay. So, what has happened recently? I wonder. Well, the big thing that's happened most recently is that this bill, the Spring 2025 Advisory Bill for a Chinatown quarantine, has passed. Which has meant that a lockdown has been placed upon Chinatown, and no kindred whatsoever are allowed within those domain boundaries. I am the one who terrifies God. That is a good. You have a fair hill to stand on there. Pretty decent one to make the claim. Okay, but yeah, a lockdown has been put down over Chinatown. This lovely little neighborhood over here, Chinatown. No kindred allowed in. Any kindred who were there have been told to leave and find somewhere else to stay. For the next 3 months, including this one, no kindred are allowed within these domain boundaries, which is, as has probably been mentioned by the group, has made an interesting time for the group running the Legacy nightclub. No chaos whatever happened in Chinatown. Well, there are definitely forces attempting to do so. Yeah, I won't say anymore. Let us move on. Seeing that we have had a delay, let us carry forth and tap a button to determine the initiative at which you guys will enact. Okay, redcoats are on number 2, which is putting us down here. Custodians, well and truly in the lead, rolling an 8, adding 2 at number 10. The Knights, oh, let me do this in order. Hold on. The Patriots are at 7. The group at 1. Custodians up there. The Knights above the Patriots at number 8. Gemini League also at 1. So the Gemini League and the Redcoats are going to have a roll-off to determine who of them goes last. The most contemptuous roll. Very much wanting to make sure one of them wins it. Alright, Gemini League, left, group, right. Whoever is highest goes first. Gemini League goes before the group. And looking at the Boston Camarilla are at first in terms of the NPC factions, and the Society St. Leopold are second, with First Light going last. Stuff mouth with popcorn. Yep. As exciting as ever. Not as exciting as, was it last turn, or was it the no, I think it was the turn before, where all those crazy intense 10s and 6s were being rolled for initiative. It was like, guys, don't know if initiative is that important. But seeing that we're at number 10, we have the Custodians, let us get down to business. Now, I have had given to me by the Custodians 1 action as opposed to 2. And I am just checking in case a last minute post has been made. No. So what I have done I think might be the policy going forward. I will put this in the rules, I think, afterwards. That what will happen is if you miss a action, that action will default to resolving an event. And it will attempt to resolve an event that your faction objective, in this case the custodians, would like to resolve. So in this case, they want to resolve kindred dispute events. That way, if you miss a turn, you didn't get your actions in what you necessarily may be thinking. It's important to hit those deadlines, but if you do miss it for whatever unforeseeable reason, you will still get progress, generalized progress. So in this case, for the custodians, they are performing a resolve event for their... Oh! Good thing I looked at this, because I got reminded about an assist. Because one of the actions that I do know the custodians are doing is an assist. But I will quickly do the assists first. Gosh, why do I feel rusty? I feel like I'm a little bit rusty here. But to start off with, the assists. Because there's been a couple assists this turn. And one of them is between the custodians and the patriots. Which means the patriots and custodians status goes up to 2. And the other one is between the Gemini League and the Knights. I don't know if that might ruffle the feathers of some factions, whose status now goes up to 1. And you guys will just have to wait and see what that's all about. Because going back to the custodians, their first action was to assist. That's the action that I do have down. But their second action wasn't put up, which means I've done it, defaulted it to a resolve event. Let's start off with their passives. They gain a coin. They also gain an XP. They did have a cohort, but they didn't give me the instructions. So you can go a turn without doing a cohort action because it requires coin to do. So that's going to be how that goes. Their resolve event is going to be the South Shore Plaza, because at the South Shore Plaza is a kindred dispute event which requires a social roll, which is their high stat. There's no one present on the scene, and it will resolve in a minor boon, which is a reduced scrutiny and a humiliate rival action associated boon. Minor boon, which is rolling 2 dice, which will, in a way, can provide them with an additional action next turn. Sorta. It kind of works out. But yeah, if you're not able to hit a deadline, I will default your regular actions to resolve event actions if I don't have anything to indicate what you wanted to do. But yeah, let's resolve this event by the custodians by rolling a social, which is 2 dice. Clicking buttons. Is that right? Standard, I think. Yes. And we rolled a 4. Which means they get 1 contempt, I'm pretty sure. Yes. They get the reward and 1 contempt. So, they gain 1 contempt. And they also get a minor boon with reduced scrutiny and humiliate rival. Oh! A minute ago. Oh. Pawns me by Guy. Yes, just got your notification. So, because the fortunate in terms of that a reduced contempt action is also a social role. We're going to use this social role. That was very last minute. All right. Okay. Right. Barely. I'm going to say that barely made it in. So what that instead is going to be is a reduced contempt action instead of the resolve event, which means you don't get that one contempt. And instead, gosh, flying by the seat of our pants here, we're reducing contempt and instead 2. I think in the future I will be defaulting that you need to get the actions before the deadline, but I don't know what on earth caused the delay. So do not worry. Do not worry. That stuff happens, and this is the first time this has happened. So don't worry. It's okay. It is okay. You are okay. That apologies was within Discord, but I am answering on the stream. Gosh, we're crossing the information streams. Apologies. All right. Okay. So that was 2 contempt removed via the social role, because reducing contempt, you roll social. We're okay. And thankfully, in this system, it's all D6s apart from initiative, which is a D10. But it's all D6s, so you can do slight translations. Okay. Where does that put us? I think that puts us at entanglements. Only 2 actions. We're not doing the cohort. Cool. Now, entanglements, which means we're at 0 to 3. Let me double check. I'm just double checking. I want to make sure. I've had myself thrown about by here. Yep. Calculate resources. We've done. Actions. Done. Which means entanglements. We are doing entanglements. 0 to 3. +1 scrutiny to a domain. So let us have a nosy which domain that's going to be. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Righty. Oh, I am quickly going to copy paste my little thingy because I don't want to get the code wrong in order to do that. So /do as I get this. Thank you, Emmer. You are a gem. One day I will know that off the top of my head. It is a 2, which means it was the War Memorial Recreation Center that gets, is it 1 scrutiny? 1 scrutiny. Awesome possum. Cool beans. Okay. That is the custodians. Last minute. What a turn to roll first in initiative, huh, custodians? Okay. Next up, we have our very favorite, our very flashy, our very... There's a word, and I am not recalling it. Festive. There we go. Knights. Who are performing... Well, let us get their lovely resources up first. Because they gain an XP. They also gain a coin. And they lose a contempt because they got crazy amount of passive income. We're going to add 1 also to their faction ability clock. The Jewel of Kings and Queens. Everybody loves you. You're only at 3 contempt. You're only at as much contempt as the custodians are. The Kindred Society loves you. And your first action in doing that is going to be completing your KOL Adjust Ethos clock. But because it is an action, you're performing the Adjust Ethos action, let us roll to see what you if you roll a 6, as is tradition over here. Do. That's a 5, not a 6, but 1 off of 5. So that's whole 2 ticks for this 1 tick. And that means a new set of leadership has been put into place after a fierce duel, which I have been told is incoming for the next month, which will be taking place this month, between Silas King And Queen, I'm forgetting her surname. Oh my gosh, how dare I? Queen King, I'm pretty sure. I wanted to say Queen something else because I was like, surely it's not Queen King, but no, it is definitely, it's definitely King. Or no, I'm reading your user. Let me double check. You knights and your crazy character names. As I scroll through the character description. Yeah, Queen King and Silas King, I'm pretty sure, are the two folks. And Silas King has indeed came out on top, which means not only because of the jewels and of Kings and Queens faction ability was used to fill 6 ticks of this adjust ethos clock, 4 ethos scales are adjusted instead of 1. I'm incredibly excited for that scene as well too. And I will show you what the ethos scales now look like with the now 4 adjusted ethos scales. Four of the ethos scales have been adjusted. 4. The knights have now moved to KOL laning from triad leaning in the New England ideology. In the New England ideology one, and then in the ways and means bracket, they have moved from mystic leaning all the way to mystical commitment. And then I'm trying to recall what fancy terms I have used to refer to these brackets. In their kind influence, they have moved from streetwise leaning to corporate leaning. And in their kindred principles, they have moved away from old guard leaning and are now leaning towards the new blood. And this is how Silas's leadership has adjusted the way in which the knights stand upon the ethos amongst the Boston kindred. Things are being changed up for sure. And of course, ethos will have an impact upon the size of clocks it takes for the knights and any faction to sway a primogen to their cause. But now that the knights have adjusted 4, not just 1, 4 of their ethoses, that's going to be quite significant changes across the board. And I will update you guys. Actually, is there a way for me, if I leave that image up there and do a little bit of live editing of the rules, because what I can do is, oh no, what I can do is this. Show you the math. This is an updated spreadsheet of the ethos mass from turn 8 onwards. So, everyone else is the same as before, but the knights now have a lot more green and red on their sizes of sway primogen clock. In fact, a Tremere is looking very favorably towards Silas and his leadership. Incredibly much so. They're nearly on the same page on everything. But yeah. It also, although there is no mechanical impact to how ethos relates between player factions, I have just included it for reference. Just so it's in terms of knowing where each faction stands with each other faction. And I find it absolutely hilarious and delightful that none of our kindred factions are in the green if they were to perform a sway primogen clock, pardon me, hiccups, the joy, against one another. Now, they have completed that clock. I can now remove this clock. They have adjusted the ethos, and now we go and look at what the entanglements are for this faction for this turn, because we're at 0 to 3. And that means they have to pay 1 shunned level +1, so 1 coin, to the highest status faction, or -1 status with that faction. Well, they have the coin, so where is it going to go? So who is your highest status faction? Well, you just had an assist performed between you and the Gemini League. But that's not your highest status faction, is it now, Knights? For that's the Boston Camarilla. So, the Boston Camarilla are going to get a juicy... No, they're not. They're not going to get a juicy coin, because they got no room for it. So you give them a coin and the per management skills at someone in Camarilla accounting. The second one. Oh, right, of course. Because you're not the one performing the assist. It is someone else performing the assist to you. Thank you for keeping me right. My head's all over the place. I've had a couple of distractions. I appreciate you keeping me on the straight and narrow. For the second action is the Gemini League assisting you and giving you +1 die to resolve an event at the Boston Lobster over here, which is a Kindred Dispute event. There's a Kindred Dispute happening at the Gemini League headquarters. It requires a physical roll. First Light is present on the scene, and when it's resolved, they gain 2 rep and 2 XP. So let us roll their physical stat. We're going to give you your coin back because this may impact your entanglements. Going to roll physical. And roll an additional die because I did not include it. And that's a 6. Glad we rolled the additional die. So that is no contempt gained. So in fact, the previous entanglement roll stands. We lose the coin. Oh, we also gain the 2 XP and the 2 rep. And they pay the coin. Good point. Because they want to maintain that status. So 1 coin goes to the Gemini League. And another coin, due to your entanglements, goes into the ether because your highest status is with the Boston Camarilla. But the Boston Camarilla have no space in their vaults due to bad accounting and not realize you were going to pay them. There we go. I'm curious to see what occurs, what it is that the Knights are doing at the Boston Lobs, or what this event is. So I'm going to remove that and remove this so I can note and not increase the scrutiny on this domain. Your ties are paid. They just get lost to the ether of accounting hell. Moving on to the Patriots. And let us see what the Patriots are up to today. They gain a rep. And their first action is going to be a claim domain action. And they also get an assist for this action from the custodians. So they're going to get +1 die. And that is the Quinn House, which they are requiring 2 ticks left to perform, to complete. They're going to roll, get a bonus die. And they rolled a 6, that bonus die coming in handy. Well, it would get them 3 ticks, but they got they succeeded. They are now in possession of the Quinn House. A lovely little immortal society for them to sink their fangs into. And that is another Patriot domain on the board. And because it is their first domain that they own within the Back Bay neighborhood, they increase the tick for their Open for Business faction objective. Because the faction objective, Open for Business, that the Patriots do have, is to control at least one domain in 6 separate neighborhoods, because they're looking to establish their feeding troughs around Boston for Kindred to feed at in a civilized manner, as opposed to hunting out on the streets. Indeed. The action we got to see from the Patriots this turn was, in fact, of course, with the Congress, but also with a bit of Weaver weaving her way into another plot for another character, a custodian, in fact, setting up someone for a not so great future, let's just say. We'll hint it at that. I highly recommend you guys go and read, is it Threading the Needle? Threading the Needle. I want to get it right so you guys know which the correct scene to reference. Ponsby and Vosh have outdone themselves in that. That was a great read this month. Now, the second action for the Patriots is not to claim the domain, because they have already claimed said domain. They are going to reduce contempt, which means they are going to be rolling social, which they have won in. We shall see. They roll a 4, which means they reduce contempt by 2. And they are in the 4-5 contempt bracket. Let us see. Oh, that's rough. That's rough. That's not fair. Dice, that's really mean. That's incredibly mean of you. Okay. Well, you could either think of it as you didn't get any entanglements this turn, but you also wouldn't have gotten your second action. You sacrificed your second action for no entanglements. Let's just say that's how you can think about it. Oh, the dice. That was cruel of you, dice. That is, yeah, no, I'm on the same page as you. That's not great, but I too have a god, and I must follow the dice god's whims. Moving on to the redcoats. Everyone's favorite color of coat, redcoats, who have written us a juicy wee narrative for me to read out. Let me get my my performance voice, and also let me double check. I'm going to read it from the Discord because this has been edited a couple of times. I want to make sure I get this right. The correct version, the most up-to-date version. Okay. Isolation is not safety. It is death. If no one knows you're alive, you aren't. Congress was a success, as much as it could have been anyway. The bill was passed, which Sir Maurice wanted. The other congressors voiced their approval over the idea of appointing an official sheriff, which Sir Maurice wanted, and the Knights' representatives argued Sir Maurice's case for him by quite literally, at one point, fighting themselves for the chance to proclaim their crusade. Still, his influence in Congress was undeniably limited. Any perceivable success he had achieved was done through careful words, precarious taunts, an irritating amount of luck. To make any headway on such a momentum change would require power, the kind he did not have, the kind none of his peers had, the kind he would sacrifice just about anything to achieve. His conversational connections were being strained. No, Sir Maurice required more. Okay. Nice. Has that happened? I've had been pinged. We'll make it an end of turn thing. That wasn't the intent. I hadn't updated your faction sheets. To explain where I have deviated there from the talking point, I've had it asked whether you guys gained the 1 contempt you should have gained for having this bill passed. You guys didn't. I didn't put that down in place. But what I'll do is I'll do that at the end of all turns, seeing that we've had a couple of entanglements rolled. That's on me for not being up to snuff. I greatly apologize. I do. Moving back though to the scene, for the knights have more narrative for us to read. And it's exciting. It is exciting stuff. First they'll gain their coin, because that is their passive that they gain. And technically it's the next thing in my page of notes. The first and probably most important Primogen to win over would be the sheriff in name only, Delson Coates. As was Sir Maurice's style, a letter would be sent out seeking a meeting regarding the security of his city. Who is the term his referring to there? Redcoats? Because I would have words with Sir Maurice if he considers Boston to be his city, and I think a lot of the kindred here watching this stream would also have words. But let us look past this and move on to their action, which is to perform a Sway Primogen action targeting Delson Coates. I want to say Deslin Coates, but the L and the S are 2 other ways round. So it's Delson, not Deslin. Delson. The Sway Primogen on Delson Coates. You are rolling social. You are spending 2 coin to put a +1 die bonus. A little fraudulent slip. Oh, I'm not. You're catching me out on all my mispronunciations. My dyslexia is not doing us any favors today. Fraudulent? Sounds like treasonous to me. I agree. I'm so glad it's only the storyteller and meta players that can read this. And add +1 bonus die for the fact that they spent 2 coin, which means they roll 3 dice in total. No comment, I say, pushing past the paparazzi clamoring at my door for why I only dared give 1 tick for a free dice action. Oh, I apologize. Primogen. That's yeah. At least it's no, I can't. There's not much way I can swing this. I am greatly sorry. Sorry for that. The dice love me in this game. They sure do. What did you do to them in the past life? We should check your abuse of the dice in the previous incarnation of this game. They love you. Well, 1 tick to make it a 5 tick clock for if we reference the ethos math turn sheet. Ethos math sheet. Deslin Coates is a 5 tick clock. So, to create a 5 tick clock in the Roll20 Blades in the Dark system, you got to do a 6 tick clock and fill in 1 of the ticks. And you gain a tick. I'm going to knock wood on your behalf to an Oni JJ for jinxing yourself there. So knocking all the wood, and before I roll the dice, I would like you to an Oni JJ to knock wood, so as to remove as much curse of this dice as we can. For your second action is to also perform a Sway Primogen action targeting Delson Coates, which is the same roll, but in this instance, we're not spending 2 coin to get a bonus because we've already done that, which means we are only rolling 2 dice for this action. That's a 5. It's better, which means we gain 2 ticks. We gain 2 ticks, and we are 2 ticks away. Knock, knock. Just came in there for me. Just came in there, and I rolled the dice. All right. That's a 5. That's 2 5s, but 2 5s don't make no crit. So, here we are, with 2 ticks left to go. But that is not all she wrote, for we have a trivial boon to be spent. With the neighbourhood on lockdown, sending the group's ghouls in for counter-espionage would be much easier now that the area was a controlled space. However, how much longer the Redcoats could deflect the attention onto their own domains was uncertain. Very little made Humphrey happier than playing with what was effectively city-scale cat and mouse with the hunters. Watching them chase red herrings was as much needed dose of nostalgia for past times, so as long as the Redcoats' discipline never slipped. So happy, best turn ever. Best turn ever. It's not over yet, for you are doing a disrupt investigation action, and it is only going to be 1 die, for it is a trivial boon. And that's a 1. It's not the Redcoats' turn. It is not the Redcoats' turn. Not today. Not today. Disrupt investigation, a 1. We remove 1 tick from the First Lights' combat zone investigation clock, which is 1 tick. 1 tick is removed, but we gain 2 scrutiny on the pre-declared domain that you pre-declared, which is Santarpio. Gosh, the amount of names and words I've used in this game that I don't know how to pronounce. So that is 2 more scrutiny going on, moving it to 4 out of 8. You got a 5 once. You got a 5 once. It did not go the worst way it could have. It didn't go... It wasn't as bad as it could be. It could have been worse. Speaking of worse, let us have a nosy. Double check, that was all. Yeah, remove 1 tick, gain 2 scrutiny. Let us have a nosy at entanglements, for we are at 4. We're at the 4/5 bracket of contempt. Ooh. Ooh. There's no coin. So you cannot pay 1 shunned level plus 1 coin to the lowest status faction. Thus, we must remove -1 status with that faction. Who is your lowest status faction, Redcoats? So it's a tie between the Custodians and the Boston Camarilla, both at -1, which means we're going to get our very first rivals in this game. Alright. Boston Camarilla on even numbers, Custodians on odd numbers. Boston Camarilla even numbers, Custodians odd numbers. Boston Camarilla. There's your 6. God damn it. Alright. -1. And thus, I don't know if you noticed there, I'll do it again, so maybe it might be easier. This blue into red line becomes a dark red line, as we have ourselves the very first rivals between factions. Now, I didn't pay my taxes. Ooh, I mean, to be fair, the Redcoats have been doing a lot of slander and a lot of they didn't show up to Congress on time. Well, one of them did, but their leader didn't. It was very rude of them. Very, very rude of them. Very, very, very rude of them to not show up to Congress on time. So, the Boston Camarilla now considers the Redcoats their rival. But fun fact, the Redcoats have always considered the Boston Camarilla its rivals, which I'm sure would surprise no one, because they have proactive espionage. In 2014, the Six-State War ended for the Kindred of Liberty, but for the Redcoats, the only thing that changed was their military doctrine. Boston was not ready for another open war, so the Redcoats would adapt to Sir Maurice's strategy, a doctrine of his own creation named proactive espionage. The Redcoats know their existence is mostly unwanted in the city of Boston, and as such, every kind word, smile, and promise bears as much weight as the knife poised against their back. To the Redcoats, allies are preferable, but if one cannot be loved, they will most certainly settle for being feared. They consider factions at status 0 or -1 to be their rivals. Those factions do not consider you to be as a rival, but now that the Boston Camarilla and Redcoats relationship status are at -2, it's rival time for official, because rivals, when two factions are at -2, -3, or -4 status of each other, they are considered to be rivals. Rivals may perform the resolve event action on the rival's domain without having to pay 1 coin to avoid status loss, because things are already tense between the two factions, and the fact that you're not giving what is owed to the other faction isn't a surprise to anyone, so it doesn't actually affect the status because it's not a shock. And rivals are enabled to perform the humiliate rival action, targeting only their rivals. Humiliate rival action is an action we have only seen once in this game before, performed by the Redcoats, because the Redcoats, because they consider a lot more people their rivals, can perform this action more freely. But it means that you can steal resources from rival factions. And now, the Redcoats are vulnerable to the Boston Camarilla, giving them a little bit of taste of their own medicine. Humphrey getting booked for tax evasion? Well, I mean, if you're not paying your taxes, the Boston Camarilla may come and get your taxes for you. Come at me, Iverson. Well, we'll see how aggressive Iverson's feeling against her rivals. Sir, the Knights are here to investigate the greatest crime against one lord's tax evasion. Well, if the Knights are offering to be tax collectors, I can... maybe I can only just shrug and say, doing Kane's work. We'll see. Oh, exciting stuff. Exciting stuff. Things are getting tense. The Gemini League, who gain 1 XP and 1 coin. Action 1. There's quite the kerfuffle at the Lobster Shack tonight. It's all they write for the assisting of the Knights to perform the resolve event action at the Lobster place. It's got lobster in its name. Boston Lobster. At Boston Lobster. How nice of the Knights. And how nice of the Knights to assist the Gemini League. And how nice of the Gemini League to assist the Knights in assisting the Gemini League. They gain, that's their first action then. They've already performed the assist. Their status has already gone up. Action 2. The laughing. Hee hee. Oh dear, Kane. The laughing. It's in my eyes. I can taste colour. Ha! Mozzarella for everyone. The end is nigh. A great final jest upon us fools who thought we could bury our stocks. Last words of a Gemini League thrall who slept overnight in the Giovanni building, choked to death by their own laughter. They are performing a long-term project action on their To Our Dear Friends faction objective clock. It is a 10-tick clock, and it requires the roll mental, and they are 2 ticks out of 10. It is 10, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10. 2 ticks out of 10. They're rolling mental. Yes, if any of that sounds creepy to you, good. It should. It is very creepy. Very, very, very creepy indeed. And I suggest you guys read the ongoing scene, No Laughing Matter, because it is no laughing matter, despite all the laughing, to see what is going on at the Giovanni building. Let's see how successful these guys are at continuing their investigations as they roll their long-term project clock. They are not adding any dice to this. That's a 4. That's another 2 ticks. They are 4/5 of 4/5? No, 2/5 of the way there. 4/10 of the way there. 2/5 of the way there. Not bad. They are at 4 out of 9 contempt, which means they're in the 4/5 contempt entanglement bracket. They're going to gain 2 contempt. The Gemini League are not looked upon kindly by the rest of Kindred Society. No, they are not. And that brings us to a close on the Gemini League actions. And finally, but absolutely by no way means the least, the group, whose passives are -1 contempt, and also 2 +1 long-term project ticks per turn, which they will gain when they create a long-term project clock this turn. Big contempt day. Contemptuous day. What a very contemptuous day. Indeed. Indeed, Emmer. Very contemptuous day. Their first action, though, is to perform the claim domain action on the Hancock Tower domain, which is guaranteed to success because they only need 1 tick. But you know us here at City of Cards, we like to see if we roll 6s for no good reason whatsoever. Like always. Yes, we do. Not like always, though. We didn't roll 6 at one time. But we rolled 6 this time. Sticking with tradition. Hell yeah. 3 ticks for a 1 tick necessity. And now the Hancock Tower becomes possessed. Possessed? Owned by the group. The giant, tallest building? I'm pretty sure it's the tallest building. It's tall. It's very tall. Does it say how tall? I can't see how tall. Nope, I didn't write how tall it is, but I'm pretty sure it's the tallest building in Boston, is now owned by the group, who had a very interesting encounter. They had to decide what direction of a crossroads they were going to take without being able to see the end of said crossroads. I would recommend going to read the ongoing scene, Crossroads in the Dark, if you want to know anything about that and get a little bit of the beginning trails of something brewing underneath the surface of Boston. For we move on to Action 2, which is to perform a long-term project action to investigate Synergy International. Now, this isn't it's a mechanical action, but it isn't one of the typical listed long-term projects actions in the rulebook. That is because this is a one-off unique instance. Not a one-off unique instance, but a instance in which they are going to fill a clock in order to learn narrative information within the narrative setting. But because it is of such significant narrative information to learn, it is required of them to perform a long-term project and dedicate mechanical actions to acquire said information. It is that juicy of a find. It is an 8-tick clock. I am going to write in here. Investigate Synergy International. And Emmer has inspired me to call this a storyteller beat. That is what we will refer to these clocks as, because that is an excellent name for these types of clocks. So well done, Emmer. You've named something off the cuff on the fly during a stream. It is a mental roll required to fill ticks in this clock, though they will gain 2 ticks in this clock because that's where they're dedicating these 2 long-term project, because this is still a long-term project clock. I'm gonna put that in LTP so we know it's a long-term project clock. It is still a long-term project clock. So these ticks and where you can find long-term project ticks on the map can provide for these storyteller beat clocks. So if you have a suspicion, if you want to not only do these long-term project ticks per turn domain enable you a way to passively unlock upgrading of domains, locking Swayed Primogen, etc., but they also provide you a passive way of potentially discovering unlocking storyteller beats if the opportunity arises. So 2 ticks, a quarter of the way there. We are rolling mental for this because it requires mental ability to investigate the Synergy International. 2 dice. They're not spending anything for bonus. That's a 5. That's another 2 ticks. They are half the way there. And now the group is in a very advantageous position because they have established themselves as such. They started the game with the Deer Island water treatment plant, which had a 1 tick to a long-term project clock per turn. And they used that very, the word I'm looking for is ingeniously. Sure, we'll go with ingeniously. Yes, ingeniously, because that's totally a word. Very, very much suave of them. They used that long-term project tick. They started a upgrade domain long-term project, which was to upgrade a domain, and that domain being Gibson House, choosing the +1 long-term project per turn tick upgrade effect to grant this domain this effect. And then they just waited. They let their passive tick income slowly complete that clock for them as they did everything. And now they have 2 of them. So it means that they're twice as fast completing long-term projects, and such as this one. So now that their investigation has begun, because they have applicable resources which can be applied, I will say in a narrative sense, they can just passively let that investigation tick, and it will take 2 months / 2 turns for that to be filled out. Or they can roll a mental and complete it next turn, potentially. Or they roll a 1, in which case they would only get 1 tick, and then we need another tick to do. So, I don't know. Well, we have an interesting track record, so we'll see. We'll see what happens. It's exciting, though. Terribly exciting. As is Entanglements. For the group only has 2 contempt. So, they have to pay 1 coin. They do have a coin. We'll see where that coin goes. To their highest status faction. Let us see who that is. Ooh. We are seeing multiple dimensions of the world. Let us return to our City of Cards one. And look for the lowest? Highest. Get that right. Highest. Which I think is a tie between the Redcoats and the Gemini League. Are the Gemini League going to get another coin? Or is this going to go to the Redcoats? So, Redcoats even, Gemini League odds. There's our upper six. That's where all our sixes are going. Of course that's where all our sixes are going. Evens. What did I just say? I said Redcoat's odd, Gemini League even, right? You guys remember, right? Confirm if that was correct. I'm going to wait and see you guys typing it out. Should have wrote that down. Otherwise, I wouldn't have gotten distracted. Even though I got distracted by the 6, I would have had a reference. Does anyone remember? Or do you want me to roll that again? It goes to the Redcoats? Cool. Trusting you. It goes to the Redcoats. Because you guys are going to remember better than I am. So, the group are paying off the Redcoats. Which, as far as I understand, they owe the Redcoat. They actually do owe the Redcoats coin. So, whether this counts is up to you guys to debate amongst yourself. Not me as a storyteller throwing that out just to see if we can inspire some attempting weaseling out of a prearranged arrangement. Okay, now that is the end of the player faction actions. So what I'm going to do is, because I forgot to, but thus I am going to do it now, we're going to add all player factions gain the 1 contempt. Now, to be fair, and give them all after they've gained their entanglements. So this is 1. Ooh, Patriots are up high. Redcoats. So are the Gemini League. Patriots and Gemini League up there with the contempt. Because you guys voted and passed the bill. Yes, group, help me pay my taxes. I mean, the group are moneymakers, to be fair. Are they moneymakers? Well, they're not moneymakers in the game. They are money acquirers in terms of they go out there and steal money from other people. The IRS is here. I need a quick loan or two. You guys literally sit upon the Federal Reserves. That's where the Consulate General is. Is literally on top of the building for the Federal Reserves. Yeah. Surely you could find some money. Okay, we're moving on to the Busting Camarilla. Who gain 2 XP, have no space in their vaults for their 1 coin, and do their narrative. With Chinatown in lockdown, the Boston Camarilla moves to fulfill its duty in preventing the SI from obtaining any real leads, as that is the most pressing priority there is in these nights. They are performing a disrupt investigation action against First Light, which means they roll, I want to say physical. I want to double check that. They roll tier. They roll their tier, which is 2. And the scrutiny is going to go to Berklee College of Music. Money, sir, Mumford Morris. Humphrey pointing downstairs. It's down there. Is it your money, though? Or is that the US state government's money? I guess I'd have to look into who has control. That's only a 3. 2 3s. Hey, the Boston Camarilla also are getting it this turn, which means they remove only 1 tick. I mean, there is only 1 tick to remove thanks to the Redcoats. That's not First Light, that's Redcoats. So, all the progress First Light has made has been undermined. But they do gain 2 scrutiny on the Berklee College of Music. So that becomes a 3. Vinix Haven gets a little bit more eyes on it. Kindred IRS, more IRS. Ooh. That's a good question, Emmer. My gut would say the Moro IRS. Because I feel like, as crazy as this is going to sound, I feel like Kindred IRS is going to be a lot easier to buy off. I know that sounds crazy, but no, that's my opinion. And I'm sticking to it. Oh, the Boston Camarilla didn't perform well in fulfilling their duties, but they did fulfill them. The First Light are at step 1, back to page 1 on their progress. Their entanglements bracket is 0 to 3 because they have 3 contempt. Let us see. More money being paid. Well, they have the money to do it. Pay shunt level to the highest satisfaction or -1 status with that faction. Well, they got the coin to do it. Is this money going to go back? Oh my kitty. And did the Knights pull off the biggest scam in the scams of all scams? They did. That's incredible. So the Knights' entanglement was to pay a coin to the Boston Camarilla. But that coin didn't go anywhere. So it evaporated. And due to accounting error. But then the Boston Camarilla was like, oh, the Knights have overpaid their taxes. So here you go. Here's the tax refund. And thus, the Boston Camarilla loses the tax and also refunds the tax. Crazy. Crazy stuff. Society of St. Leopold. What are you up to today? What are you up to this month? Ever since roughly mid-March, 2 kindred haven't been seen at their usual hangs. They're both neonate nobodies, and not exactly many of the society are actively missing them. But their absence is beginning to prompt the occasional gossip or rumour. The tale going about right now is that the last place anyone knew where they were going to both be was at a rendezvous with each other at Valent Branch Library. The Society of St. Leopold, for their one action this turn, they are performing a resolve event at Valent Branch Library. Where is that, you may ask? Well, I will show you. It is over here in Cambridge, in the middle of Cambridge, for a fact. And it is Custodian's territory. It is an occult event requiring a mental roll to resolve. Kindred citizens are present, perhaps those 2 neonate nobodies. And if resolved, the event will yield a trivial boon, which will grant a hunt action or a contend conflict action. Rightio. Society of St. Leopold. Rolling a mental, which is 1 dice. Let's see how much contempt they gain. 1! The maximum amount of contempt they could have gained. Righty-o. Let me see. That is 2 contempt, 2 contempt. So they gain 2 contempt. Going up there. Going up there indeed. But that does resolve the event here. Oh, and yes, they are not paying the 1 coin to maintain the status with the custodians. Are you mad? So, that means between the custodians and the Society of St. Leopold, their status is now at -1. And they gain the boon. I'm going to put that in my notes. And now they roll entanglements. Yeah, yeah, isn't it? Yeah, I love that tax exchange. That was great. Now, for contempt, we are at 3, 6. 6 plus contempt bracket. Let us see. The gain plus free scrutiny to a domain. Now, the Society of St. Leopold are kind of playing the system here. Because there is no domain for them to gain scrutiny on. Because they don't have a domain. Because, well, the custodians and the patriots got in the way of that, didn't they? So, yeah. Ugh. They got away with their entanglements. How devious of them. Let's move on to our other SI faction, who are, predictably so, going to attempt to perform their investigation. Oh, I need to increase the timer on the combat zone, because there's only this turn and next turn left for the timer on the investigation. They are now going to be falling a little bit behind, considering they've had all their progress undone by the Kindred of Boston. Those devious bloodsuckers. So they are starting on page 1. They are rolling mental, because that is what you do. Yep, rolling mental for the SI factions, which is 2 dice. They are not spending. Are they spending coin? They have the coin, but I didn't list it. So, for whatever reason, they're not spending coin. They are not spending coin. They probably should have spent coin, but they didn't. And they roll a 5. So they are back where they were. Ah, God, curse you. They have made no progress this turn. Thanks to the Redcoats and the Boston Camarilla, who are rivals, may I add, doing Kane's work. Now, they are at 1 contempt, which means they are in the 0 to 3 entanglements contempt bracket. They gain 1 contempt. And that is the end of the actions for turn 8. Bit spicy. Ooh. Ooh. Stuff going down. We have tensions boiling. Rising up between the Redcoats and... I'm trying to highlight this, but my mouse keeps moving every time I lift my hand. The Redcoats and the Boston Camarilla. We have shenanigans going on in the Boston Lobster. Shenanigans always going on in the Giovanni building, which I'm going to do this on camera and increase the scrutiny per turn just to get it videoed. And so you guys are reminded about it, because I'm sure it's easy for that to go under the radar. For these 2 turf, gain a scrutiny every turn. So yeah, we're 2 scrutiny out of 8 now at Combat Zone, because originally it was 3 scrutiny, but then it went down by 2 because of the bill, because all the Chinatown domains lost 2 scrutiny. So good job, y'all. Well done, Congress. You delayed further scrutiny being added to the Combat Zone. But yes, we're at 6 out of 8 scrutiny on Giovanni building, because it is such a tricky building to have a hold of, and the Gemini League do not have easy task ahead of them and in present, because what they're attempting to do is a tricky thing. Now, I have to reveal to you what are the events for next turn, and that is not correct. Let me... I think I accidentally edited the wrong thing. I made a duplicate. So what we're going to do is click this button, and change it live. There you go. Turn 9 events, which I'm going to pull up for me in front of me so I can read them out to you. We have a masquerade breach at Old North Church, a mortal crime event at Southampton Yard, a decree enforcement event at the South Street Diner, a mortal crime event in the Pin Street Inn, a masquerade breach at the Massachusetts General Hospital, another masquerade breach at Suffolk Downs, a kind politics event at Pro Courier, another kind politics within the Boston Common, and a mortal crime event at the Rivermark Apartments. And that brings us to the end of turn 8. Thank you all for watching. I cannot wait for a couple of scenes to continue, for a couple of scenes to start. That duel is going to be very, very, very exciting and impactful. We've already seen the mechanical impact is huge with how the ethos have shifted up and how the Primogen now view the Knights now that it is under new leadership. I enjoy partaking and also reading all the RP that is to come. You guys have a phenomenal day now. Have safe nights. And I will see you next month and in the Discord in text format and occasional voice format when I pop into Elysium, which I'm going to do now after this turn. So yeah.